if you get a builder that starts saying, "Oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, sure we can do that," but they don't ever say, "No, hold on, we can do that, but
there's always a but.
Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what it's going to take. Here's how it affects the rest of the project.
Costs.
Here's the domino effects.
Correct.
Okay, because now I got to reschedule a bunch of dudes.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, here's the dollars and cents.
Yep.
So get ready to get your checkbook out and add a few more dollars.
This episode, what I thought we'd talk about is a continuation to some degree of one of the other episodes we talked about people buying an existing home versus a new construction home and why you're likely to do one versus the other. So what I thought we'd maybe do in this episode is kind of have you be the buyer to some extent.
Okay.
And we've already identified we want a new construction home.
Okay.
So kind of asking me the questions as it goes through the process of building from a buyer's perspective to give the listeners insight into, what things to consider.
Yeah. So do I get to go in character voice?
Do whatever you like. We'll experiment a little bit.
Wow, that's a really nice shirt you have there. I like that. That's a really nice shirt.
Let's try another one.
Okay. Oh, we're going accent. People always, people always like, I want to do my Scottish accent there. And they're like, nah, that's not Scottish.
Could you hold that the whole time?
That's Irish. I could, actually.
Could you? Huh? That'd really throw everybody off. Anyway.
All right, so listen. My wife and I want to buy a place. We're really, really leaning towards new construction. We're not really quite sure which direction to go. We really love the idea of maybe, full on like custom and just being able to be creative. My wife has a bunch of amazing ideas, but we also know and we hear of horror stories like that could be really hard and not fun sometimes. But what are our options? Like, what should we be looking at? What are the things we should be really considering? Yeah.
Before I answer that question, the one thing I would say, and you touched on it, is building is not for the faint of heart. We kind of jokingly in our industry talk about, is your marriage strong enough to handle it?
Well, that's what I've heard is you want to test your marriage, build a house.
Build a house, exactly. And there's reasons for that, and we'll chat about it to a large extent in this podcast. But just know that going in, like that's something to really take serious because there's a lot involved in it. But now to answer your question, what we're gonna identify is what area you're going to be in and what options you have. Yeah. Because I'm sure a lot of markets, but certainly ours, depending on where you want to be, builders might exist there or they might not. And even if they are building there, they might be building homes different than the one you want. We call them products. So if you say, I want to be in Ada County, but I want a half-acre property, that takes out a lot of the different types of builders.
Got you.
So we hone in on where, we're going to do new construction. We're going to have a house built. Now we identify what builders that we want to engage with.
Okay.
And then even beyond that, one step further is, are they going to build the home the way you want it? You mentioned custom. Yeah. So not all builders, and I mentioned it in the prior podcast, is not all builders will do full custom. Some are doing semi-custom, where you're doing the, appliances and options in the floor plan, but really you're not starting from scratch.
Okay, so there's already like a template there, and so you can kind of choose some things.
Correct. And to the extreme, there's some builders that don't even allow that.
Right.
You find a home, pick a lot, and it's already identified with the floor plan, and it's fully spec'd out, meaning they've got the color choices picked out, the flooring, the cabinetry, the appliances, the plumbing, all that's dialed in. So that's called a spec home. So it sounds like in this conversation we kind of want to go with something.
So you would basically just say, they basically say you have option A, B, or C, and this is what A package looks like, floor plan, everything. This is B, and because we know it fits on that lot.
Yeah, so usually you'll go in. So let's assume we're going down the semi-custom route because it's kind of in the middle of both of those.
Okay.
It's not totally fixed, but it's not strictly custom. And this makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. And to some degree, it's to keep the buyers from getting themselves in a bad situation. Because as capable as a buyer might think they are in building a home, when you're looking at a color of a swatch or different things, it's much different at a large scale.
Right.
And then you pick things and you're like, whoa, that didn't look anything like
Mary
I thought
does
it was.
not like that color.
Correct. She thought she did, but she
She
didn't.
thought it was salmon and it's pink.
Correct. So the builders will identify, like you said, kind of option A, option B. Pick a floor plan, pick an elevation, pick this interior option, and it comes with it. So they've kind of confined to some degree something that's going to make sense, but give you some flexibility in the personalization.
So it allows you to, I mean, they already have it put together. You can see everything. You can be like, I love that. And it allows you to, you maybe choose from an A or an option B, but it allows you just to basically see it. And so I don't have to sit there and stress and worry about how's it going to come together.
Right. And usually if the builder has a large enough development, there's some example of a home that's already kind of like that. This is elevation A, and they might show you on a piece of paper, but you could drive by one and say, oh, here's the elevation you're looking at, and they kind of picked your color scheme.
Okay.
So you kind of know, or they have one under construction where they can take you through it and say, these buyers picked your interior, fixture package. Here it is. So you're actually seeing this in a home in the scale that it's going to be at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm going to build a home, let's say I'm going to go spec route, and we're going to go find a lot. Now, so are specs just homes that are already pre-built, and then I just go look at them, or is it I get to choose a spec based on what they say they build, and I can choose that?
It could depend. When it was really busy, the builder wouldn't even put it on the market till within a month or two of it being completed. The completed date. They're just trying to wrap it up. So you could have that degree where you're just coming in at the final stages and you're doing your normal escrow period of 30 to 45 days, and they're just putting the finishing touches on it, and you're moving in. The semi-custom, you could come in, midway through, a quarter of the way through. By then, they've already figured out the floor plan and they've permitted it, and it's pretty well defined. Okay. So you're not, it was semi-custom, but they already kind of started it for you. So it became a spec. If you're going to get into the semi-custom, they haven't even dug dirt, they haven't dug the hole. And you're going into them saying, let me look at the lots where I'd like to be in the development. Then can I put that floor plan on there? Because it might not fit. They'll tell you this lot, if you like to be next to the common areas so you don't have a back or side neighbor, these floor plans will fit on there. These are the elevations that we could do. So the exterior look of the property, of the home, option, and then within that, these are the options that I have for that floor plan. Okay. So you're kind of drilling it down. So that's starting from scratch in a semi-custom situation.
And so again, the semi-custom is going to allow us to maybe pick some appliances, maybe light fixtures.
Again, typically packages.
Yeah, carpet, maybe type of LVP flooring. Okay, so maybe some color options.
Yeah. Some are more detailed than others. Some will have like a high-level package you pick from. Okay. We do have some other builders that'll let you get kind of down into the nitty-gritty. They've kind of refined things. They'll have, like a palette up on the wall, and they'll say, hey, you pick this floor plan, and they'll put a swatch next to it and kind of show you the colors, and they'll let you be pretty picky about it. You're not moving walls around. You're not changing.
So you're not changing floor plans, but you are able to change how you dress it up, per se.
Yeah.
Okay. How you design it.
I call it personalized. It's a personalized home. It's so, you can't say it's custom because it's not. Custom is a ground up from scratch, do it your way. Right. It's not a spec home where it's all predefined, but you're kind of personalizing. I think most people get that around. I call it semi-custom, so they're synonymous. Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. So, when you want to engage with us, the first question, one of the first questions is going to be your timelines. If you come to us and say, I want a semi-custom and I kind of want to start from scratch, you're probably, depending on the builder, 7, 8, 9 months out, depending on where they're at in the process of the development. When can you get started? So if you have that intention and then you have that flexibility in time, that might be a good fit for you. Right. But if you are 3 or 4 months out, which, would be tough in a resale home because most sellers want to sell within 30, 45 days, but that builder could have already started something and said, hey, I already have that floor plan that you liked over here on these 3 lots. And they're already kind of predefined with these specs going in. And that's so they can start ordering that stuff, in bulk, getting them out there and getting things going. So it was a little personalized, but it was predefined for you, and then you just pick which lot that you liked with that configuration.
So I have a question for you, because like we have some friends that like, oh, we had a custom home built, and the idea is like, oh, it's just so much nicer. Tell me, is there a difference really between me building a spec or a semi-custom versus a custom? Like, am I going to lose quality because I didn't go custom?
So, as we mentioned in the inspection side of things, just because you spent a lot and did custom doesn't insinuate that it was better quality. It should, certainly at a different price point. Usually custom build jobs are done for very particular buyers. They want something very specific. They're on their 4th, 5th, 6th house, and they've got furniture, and they've got flow, and they've got, entertainment considerations. They've got a lot of things that they say, I can't find that in the cookie cutter environment. I want
the grand piano doesn't fit in any of these rooms.
Right. Exactly. I want my formal living and a formal dining, options, which most don't build these days. So you have very specific needs, and you have to go the custom route. To do that.
Yeah. So that makes a ton of sense, because like, we definitely want to have things that we can, we need in these rooms. And so it's going to come down to, are there some floor plans that can fit them or not? And do what we want, because like, we want to have a wet bar on the back wall, and we want to have a design where people can flow through the kitchen and right to the dining. That's, so I understand now a little better of a direction maybe we should be leaning.
And those are difficult, because the husband and wife, or whoever's putting this together, there's a lot to consider. You're taking variables to the extreme at this point. A semi-custom, you're confined within these parameters, and rightfully so to some degree. But in a custom,
so if I'm trying to operate on a budget, let's say, and let's say I've got some coin to spend, but I still have a budget, and you're telling me custom doesn't necessarily mean better. It just means custom. It means it's
pick a good builder,
right?
Yeah.
So we got to do some homework on the builder, with some homework and checking that, and I'm assuming we'll go around and drive around and look at some product that would be of that builder.
And I would certainly talk to some referrals that had them build a custom home for it, talking about how the process went and all that. And one of the big considerations, I probably need to go back just maybe even a little bit, is earnest money consideration. So, in the resale market, and to some degree the entry level mid move up homes, kind of market move up homes, you're just think roughly 1% of earnest money. So, $500,000 home, you're talking $5,000, right? You're contributing this to the process. Now, in a build job, most builders are going to ask you to go hard with that money, versus if on a resale home, you've got due diligence period, and you got some things to figure out. But because you're personalizing, that money's in jeopardy pretty quick. So in the in a spec, they'll take less, because they've already kind of got it predefined and they know it works.
Well, so they control it more.
Yeah. Well, they know that it's something they can sell to the mass market. Right? They pick fairly generic colors, and the floor plans was created to where most buyers are going to be okay with that. Once you go semi-custom and you're starting to tweak the colors, you got people picking stuff that is a little out of the norm, they're going to want, probably a little more earnest money. And then especially if you do kind of upgrades in the design center, when you're going in there and you're picking those nuanced features, the upgrades that you make may require a larger contribution for your earnest money, because it's more personalized. It's going to be harder for them to sell if for some reason you can't buy the house. In a fully custom, you're going to be putting up a lot of earnest money. Think about it, right? You got a very personalized house, want a grand piano? How many people got a grand piano? They got to put a place to put it.
Right.
You're talking 10, 15, 20% earnest money, depending on the builder.
Yeah. And I guess depends on how creative we want to be. And that is something we really ought to consider if I'm working with a budget too. Because every time I'm assuming you change your mind, that equals dollars and cents.
Well, that's why I brought that up. Some people are like, I'd really like that personalization, that semi-custom approach. If you're okay with time, which is sometimes tough to do, if you're okay with kind of the process being a little more involved and a little more stressful, do you have the money to do it? Because the more you personalize, the more they're going to ask you to put towards it.
Right.
So yeah, you have to have the budget. It's like, oh, this sounds great, and I'm going to do all these cool personal stuff. Just know that there's going to be a cost associated to it.
Yeah.
Not a cost at the. I mean, yes, you're doing your upgrades, but if for some reason you can't buy the house, you've got more skin in the game.
Right. So I'm going to switch gears for a second. I'm going to step out of character. So one of the things I have known some custom builders, a couple of guys in particular, and one of the things I would say about them is they have brought together a team of subs that are so in sync with them that the experience is pretty smooth, and they're so good at talking and communicating and hearing, listening. It's pretty impressive, the kind of custom stuff they do. So it can be, if you find the right person, it can be an enjoyable, because here you are given this blank canvas, and it is yours to paint up and draw and place and put things. And if you're that type of person who loves to be creative and you visualize things and you want to create it, it can be an amazing process. But again, if you're a person that maybe has desires and ideas, but maybe doesn't have as much patience, or maybe doesn't realize the dollars that go with creativity
Yeah.
and the timelines,
Right.
you got to step back and look at that.
Yeah. Or a builder that can't quite put the vision together. Like,
Right.
I really want to do this, and they keep saying, okay, yeah, and you're going out in some foreign territory.
Yeah, one of the things we used to say, because I used to be around construction all through college, and I've actually done some project management for a custom builder back in my earlier years when he needed some help, and I dealt with homeowners and going through that process, working with subs. But if you get a builder that starts saying, "Oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, we can do that. Oh yeah, sure, we can do that," but they don't ever say, "No, hold on, we can do that,
But
there's
always a but.
Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what it's going to take. Here's how it affects the rest of the project.
Costs.
Here's the domino effects."
Correct.
Okay, because now I got to reschedule a bunch of dudes.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, here's the dollars and cents.
Yep.
So get ready to get your checkbook out and add a few more dollars.
So that builder should absolutely be the reality check, but so should your agent.
Yeah.
There was a couple things that I was going to comment on, so thank you for reminding me. One is on the custom side. Your earnest money is going to, certainly go up, but you need to, take into account all of these massive considerations that this house needs to be fully defined. It's not a spec where you have everything mapped out. You're doing things kind of on the fly. So make sure that you and your agent have identified everything down to the nut and the bolt. Not just a price, here's roughly what we want to do, because there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of room for interpretation. Well, that's not what I thought when you said that. I had a different idea. Like, detail that out in the contract that says how much insulation you're going to have, what the manufacturer is and the model numbers of the appliances you're using. I mean, have it all detailed out so that you don't get through the process and now all of a sudden you're like, well, you gave me a budget of this and I picked this, and it can get out of control really quickly. So you got to document all that stuff.
Yeah. Lots of communication, clarification.
Yeah.
And confirming.
Yeah. So I started out in new construction because I had an architectural
that's right.
design degree. So
you got skills.
Well, I felt a little good about going into real estate because I did have an architectural design background. So I felt like it gave me a little bit, more, I guess, street cred or what have you.
Yeah.
But I think I mentioned earlier, it's just, this is an easy, I think that was in the last podcast, but fairly easy industry to get into.
Right.
But anyway, so to read plans, I think if you're doing heavy duty new construction stuff, work with the agents that know what they're looking at on the plans and what this means to tweak this and tweak that. The semi-custom stuff, one of the big advantages is they're fine-tuned, they're tweaking these plans over many, many years, stuff that didn't work. On a custom thing, you're like, yeah, that should work, especially up north. Like you said, you're working up McCall, Donnelly, and all that. These brand new floor plans, how do you know what's the roof lines and the snowfall off and the air circulation? You start you're trial and error in that stuff.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's probably where like you mentioned, having a little experience, because like I paid my whole way through college in construction on the summers. Then when I took a break between my sophomore and junior year to go from a JC to finish up a 4-year, I just did construction that whole time, and so it allowed me to be around, not only just the spec stuff, but then we worked and dealt with some of the custom guys, and I got to understand like the steps in the process, what that looks like, how it affects decision making and changes, affects the timelines and the domino effect of that. But no, you bring up a lot of really good points, and the fact that like you are so savvy to where you can actually look at some of these things, blueprints and designs, and say, hey, yeah, I mean, this is where we're at, but help them along the way to kind of understand some of those choices that are made and how that could affect.
Yeah, you nailed it when you said there's some stuff you just should say no to. Like, yeah, you might want to do that, but that's not gonna end well.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna get ugly, and it's nobody's gonna be happy at the end of this whole thing.
Right. So specs really are for people who are maybe more on a time crunch. Maybe they fall in love with certain floor plans, certain neighborhoods that meets their needs. Maybe it has to do with commute. Maybe it has to do with a school, whatever, that are like, well, that's kind of what we want for our family, our dynamic. Spec is also a lot less stress, right? Because it's just right there.
I'll spell it out for you.
You can choose from option A, option B, option C. The semi new construction is most of it's already there. Can't move walls around. Can't change some things. How maybe it sits on the lot. Maybe, but you can have a say in maybe colors.
Yeah, usually you're going into a design center.
Yeah,
and they've kind of got samples. Shown for you and help you pick that out.
Yeah, and that can be really fun. It gives you to where you kind of take ownership that you kind of help make this come to what it is when you have neighbors and friends over. And then there's the full on. If you just love to be creative and you have things you need
specific
that home,
requirements,
that needs to function, then full on custom can be an amazing experience with that.
Yep. Yeah. So you picked your builder, you picked your location, you picked your lot, you put down your earnest money, and you're off to the races, right? You've made your commitment. Now we're pulling in all the entities, title, escrow, all the people that need to help put this thing together. And you're on whatever level of, build process you're on. Again, custom, you're probably a year out for, kind of a higher end custom home.
Right.
Your build.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really, I guess I kind of knew that, but I didn't really know it. Like when Jack the other day said that, hey, I've inspected like $5 million homes. I mean, the nicest of the nice. And he crawls up in certain attic spaces and there's no insulation or there's things that weren't done, or done right. I mean, so again, it's about, details, communication, follow-up, making sure. And that's where I think having an agent involved in that process can reduce some of that stress because they can be continue looking ahead and kind of going through the checklist of where we should be at in this process and making sure we like the product we're getting.
Yeah. So a good agent should know the builders that you would select from, and if there was ones that they were unfamiliar with, know how to do the due diligence to go figure it out.
A little homework.
Yeah, not just a name. Oh yeah, they're a home builder.
I heard they're great.
That doesn't fly.
Yeah, go walk through some of their houses.
Yep.
See what it's really like, what those corners are like.
Look them up with the Better Business Bureau, and talk to referrals, and see what they're building. Don't just trust them because there's not a lot of requirements, in state Idaho to be a builder, certainly compared to the Californias.
Yeah. Good points.
Yeah. So you're having it built. You're going through the process, and now you're seeing it become a home. We had a podcast about inspections, as you mentioned. Jack was here, and we recommend that you do a new inspection, even for a brand new construction home.
Absolutely, that was the biggest thing that when he said that, I was like, it just makes so much sense. But people don't think of that.
They really why would I spend that extra money?
It's brand new. What do I need? But
We gave all kinds of examples of why that can mess you up, make you go sideways.
If you haven't listened to that one, go listen to it.
That's right.
Because he made some great points.
You'll spend the money on an inspection for a new construction home.
Yeah.
And if you need some more examples, call us and we'll share with you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you get the inspector, through the property. We do what's called an RE10 inspection contingency addendum, or whatever the builder gives you for that report, and then you identify the things that third party inspector wants to be resolved on the home. That's usually done about a week, maybe two, prior to what they call a new home inspection. Acronyms galore in our industry, just like most. NHO. So that new home orientations to make sure the home was built right. The inspector identified things, got that addressed.
Now say that last part again.
Yes,
right before HO. You said
HO. Mm-hmm.
Right before that, you said
third party inspection.
Yep.
You get the inspection contingency addendum.
Yep.
Which you put the things that were in the report,
mm-hmm.
and you give that to the builder.
Okay.
And you're like, hey, these are the things that our inspector found that are of concern, out of code, should have been addressed, our concerns.
Yeah, you forgot the insulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're crawling around up in the attic, and they're making sure everything works.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you go to the new home orientation, you're verifying that all that stuff's done, and you can have an inspector do a re-inspect to make sure that the stuff that they identified is done.
Right.
But the new home orientation is also to educate you on how to maintain your home.
Nice.
A builder.
Nice.
And this can vary from builder to builder. Some, they just kind of walk you through the house and point at a bunch of things, and you're out in 15 minutes. I see good new home orientations be an hour to an hour and a half, if not 2 hours long.
That makes total sense.
Yep. This is how you maintain this. This is how you take care of that. This is when you do this. And there's a laundry list, and they're walking you through the process. It gets a little exhausting for buyers. Cause, man, there's such a lot, a little overwhelming because there's a lot here. But it's not it's things you'll need immediately, but things that you'll at least go, okay, I got to remember that for the fall.
Because it's a guarantee. It's like anything new. Once you use it for a while, it's gonna relax a little bit, get a little sagging, a little bit, whatever. There's certain things that they can just show. Oh, hey, by the way, here's a little. Here's how you adjust this. Here's how you do that. Here's some things. We got these really nice, pulls. But if something happens, here's how you pull a drawer out, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's things like that homeowners should know. Yeah. How their home operates and how they can maintain things properly. Needs to be heads up on.
Yeah, this NHO I did last week that was really good because she actually showed the process, not only how the drawer goes out, but it is meant to kind of have some give at a certain point so that you don't just bump it and break stuff.
It. Yep.
Walk you through all that. Garbage disposal, something slides down in there, fork, spoon gets all jammed up. Like, they're showing you all this stuff, and they can appreciate if you had a home before and you're kind of nodding up and down and you're getting it. They'll move it along a little bit or a little faster. But for first-time home buyer, which has happened a lot in our market, first-time home buyer, new construction, pay attention.
Hey, something as simple as the food disposal in the sink. All of a sudden, it's locked up, and when you go turn it, just goes, and it's like, guess what? There's a way to get underneath it with an Allen wrench, and you can turn it
off,
turn it the other direction, and it frees up what was ever in there, and then usually 9 times out of 10, you're good. You didn't burn up your motor. Yep. Some people will just be like, well, I just sat there and tried to run it, and then, So little things like that. Yeah. Super helpful.
Yep. Yeah. So that new home orientation is really that kind of acclimation that, hey, did we get your job done right? Are you happy with the home? Are there any things, that are of concern? And they'll let you typically run around with blue tape as well, because they know you could. Blue tape, like the big old roll, hand you roll. Walk around, where do you see stuff? And usually they will walk around behind you. And just do, because at that point, really, there should be stuff. You'll have the person that's walking you through the new home orientation, and then the warranty person that's following up, or the construction person that's fixing that stuff on the fly as you go.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with blue tape back in my painting days.
All over the place. I love it how they get creative. Like, if there's something up on a 12-foot tall ceiling, they kind of put the tape to point.
Well, when you're the painter and you come in, you're like, what?
Right.
Like, man, I gotta get the ladder in there again.
Yeah. So there's a lot here. Probably jumping ahead a little bit, but really, don't get overwhelmed. Just partner with the right agent that's has experience doing this and helping you walk through the process. to your point of communication. This is what's going to happen next. This is why it's got to happen like this. Just sharing the process, because there's a lot of questions. We'll have buyers out there like they want to be out there every day looking at what's going on, having questions, and there'll be gaps from this sub to that sub.
Yeah.
So we just have to kind of talk them through it.
It makes so much sense because, some people will be like, well, why would you need an agent if you're just dealing with new construction? But the things we've covered, the extra set of eyes and ears, listening, seeing, hey, here's a couple things we should be asking. Here's a couple things we should be making sure is getting done. Let's go ahead and bring in the inspector. It makes total sense. It's peace of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about how to identify a good agent in an earlier podcast, and I think it's important to know here that if you have an agent trying to talk you out of new construction, wonder if it could be in part because they don't want to wait that 5, 6, 7, 8 months to get the house built.
And if that's the case, there's a red flag. This ain't about you.
Right.
This is about them.
Right.
And
they
run.
Want that 30-day escrow. Yeah. Yeah. We talk about, your best interest, doing what's best for you. And if building is what's best for you,
yes,
then, we're just honest. It's a lot more work to help somebody build a home. It's easy to go out and help somebody, easier to help somebody go out and find an existing home and, walk through the process, and 30 days later you're all done.
Yep.
But, for a lot of people, building is a good thing. It's a right thing, but it does require that. If they put you in contract and the next time you see them is at the closing table, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was not a good agent.
Mm-hmm.
I go to all the construction updates that they have, certainly the third-party inspections, the NHO, like I'm right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the process. I don't know if there's anything you saw as kind of being that buyer in the process. You're like, okay, when we were at this point or what have you.
Well, I think as buyer, you really need to kind of do a self-check, and you need to look at, do I have the patience for some of the steps? How creative, hands-on do I want to be? Mm-hmm. How much do I just, want to say, hey, I saw those pictures. I love what that looks like. That's what I want, Mm-hmm. So you got to be able to kind of understand yourself, I think, mm-hmm. To know which route. I definitely think you need to look at timeline, budget. Mm-hmm. If timeline's a big deal, then you need to, lean towards spec or semi mm-hmm. new construction. If budget is something that you're like, I got X amount and I have to stay there, you better be looking at semi-new to just spec. Mm-hmm. But definitely just looking at, again, what's your needs, what's your goals, and what's your personality, what's your marriage dynamic like. I think that's real, man.
Oh,
that's real.
That absolutely is.
I mean, if you two have a tendency to come at things at a different direction, mm-hmm. and that happens, right? I mean, personalities in marriage, we're like you balance each other. That's what makes it beautiful. But also when it comes to a project, mm-hmm. like there's a lot of couples that are wonderful couples and they have a beautiful marriage. But when it comes to like working together, because you will become business partners when you're building something, mm-hmm. having it built. You all of a sudden both be sitting there with what's important to you, what you want, and that can be rough. So you got to look at that marriage and say, okay, does this fit us? Yeah. Right? Yep. So
my hope is in this conversation that we've kind of laid a good visual as to what the process looks like and the things to consider, and that we'd love to help for sure. Yeah. That's again where I kind of started in real estate, and one of the things I'm super passionate about. So I'd certainly love to. And your background in construction,
Well, and I tell you what, I learned just sitting here is not only the knowledge you have, the experience you have with this on the agent side, but really you have such a good eye to understand some of these things, and you know what quality work is, how things should be, and that's impressive. So.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it triggered another thought that I meant to mention earlier is, because our market isn't very big, you don't have a lot of options, especially if you're picking certain areas, like you might be kind of limited. But if you come in the market and you hear that's not a good builder, they don't build good quality stuff, what have you. If they've been in the valley for any length of time, there are times when their quality suffered some. You mentioned the subs. What subs do they have, working? Build a lot in Ada County, and then you start migrating to other markets. You're typically picking up new subs, and they're trying to figure things out. And at different times in the life cycle of the building business, things suffer. Those are the things that we're going to be able to offer to help you, look at and say, are these builders currently building a really good product? The builder that is currently, in a certain price point today, that's building a really good home, the inspectors love, and you can see a lot of quality. 5 years ago, that wasn't their reputation. So that's when we really come into helping you identify who's building a good home.
Yeah, because the ones, everybody's going to have a bad day, right?
Right.
So the good ones learn, grow, get better.
Yeah.
And some of the rest just keep doing what they do.
Right. I'm just proposing don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Correct.
Quite often I'll get, the biggest builder in the valley here, like, oh, I hear they build junk homes. It's like, well, somebody probably bought a junk home from them 15 years ago, and that's in their mind. Like, don't ever buy that. And they tell you that. It's like, well, things probably changed in the last, 15 years.
Bottom line is do a little homework and just go look and see. Go check them out.
Yeah.
Somebody might pleasantly surprise you.
Right. And, we're going to take you out there, show you the product, talk to you why things are the way they are. And, again, we're going to recommend that you do a third-party inspection, and they're going to tell you the same thing. And actually, that's a lot where I get my feedback is the inspector saying, man, these guys are building, I'm out here seeing these homes every other day, and they're building a really solid product. My reports are thin as far as the negatives go.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. A great way, if you're new in the area, you could be like, just say, call up a home inspecting company and saying, who are your top 3 to 5 builders when you go through on a new construction?
In this price point in this area, like who would you buy a home from if you had this budget in this area?
Right.
Yeah, there's guys who know. So that's where we get a lot of ours. Of course, we're helping, a lot of buyers all the time. So
good stuff, man.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're how we doing on time here? Oh wow, we went way over. This is a great topic.
Yeah, it was.
Anyway, good stuff. A lot to think about, but like I said, if you just if you feel a little overwhelmed, uncertain, just know that we've got your back. We're gonna walk you through the process as if this was our process. Put ourselves in your shoes and take good care of you.
Yeah. It's all about you.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. All right. Well, with all that said, I'll wish you a blessed day.
Hey, wherever you're at, make the most of it and be in the moment.
Take care.